Senator O'Sullivan.
Thank you, Mr Acting Deputy President. I rise tonight to continue to speak on a matter that is of, on one hand, great interest in my state of Queensland and, on the other, of great concern. Simply to reference the subject of my speech, Mr Acting Deputy President, I speak about the marketing arrangements that exist in my home state in the sugar industry. For over 100 years, the sugar industry in Queensland has had a single marketing desk, for a long period of time regulated, now for a considerable period of time in an unregulated industry, where Queensland Sugar Limited has marketed the economic interests of sugar growers right throughout the state internationally. QSL is a not-for-profit company that is owned by the growers and millers in that state, where any profits generated by their trading performances are returned to the growers and producers and millers in the form of enhanced and attractive payments in the pools that are offered in the year following. QSL did not occur accidentally, was not formed accidentally. It was the result of a Royal Commission in my home state in 1912, where an attempt was made with the development of QSL to deal with an imbalance then in market power that was held by the millers over the interests of the growers, and it was created so that there was that the rights, the risks, and the rewards of growers and millers was equalised and balanced, producing what is now known as the economic interest of growers in 2/3 of the sugar that they deliver to mills for processing. This 2/3, 1/3 agreement has been enshrined contractually for generations within the sugar industry through the raw sugar supply agreement between the millers and QSL and the supply agreement between growers and their mills. It's regarded as a long-standing convention, and it's regarded to be in the economic interests of Queensland growers. Mr Acting Deputy President, on the 20th of May this year, Wilmar International, a multinational company based in Singapore, who has a substantial interest in the sugar industry in Queensland, in fact control over 2/3 of the sugar that is processed in my home state, notified QSL that it would be withdrawing from the collective single desk marketing arrangements effective 2017. This has resulted in a significant reaction from the growers in my state. In fact, we've established that over 1,600, or getting up towards 50% of the grower producers in Queensland, have written to Wilmar. These include, I understand, most of Wilmar grower producers and suppliers, as well as growers who are not attached to the Wilmar mills, who have indicated to Wilmar that they do not want the QSL arrangement weakened by alternative marketing options. Now, before anybody challenges us in relation to free market arrangements, Mr Acting Deputy President, there is no challenge to the ability of, on my part at least, on the part of Wilmar, to be able to market their share of the sugar. This is about Wilmar properly recognising 100 years of convention where growers have a 2/3 interest in that product when it is delivered to their mills. Sugar is somewhat different to other agricultural commodities in that there is quite a short harvest period where the harvest is delivered to the mills in the region, predominantly by a light rail system. Unlike grains, for example, sugar cannot be stored, and therefore the owners of the sugar, the grower-producer, doesn't have the same abilities, for example, as a grain producer to bide their time with respect to where and when they might market their commodity. Unlike grain, sugar, once harvested, has to be processed within a matter of hours. Otherwise, it starts to lose moisture, and the capacity then to process the sugar content diminishes to a point where the sugar is effectively spoiled after a short period of time. So the challenge here is to be able to accommodate Wilmar's lawful rights to be able to market sugar, but not at the expense of taking away the rights of grower-producers. Grower-producers in my home state, Mr Acting Deputy President, have made very substantial investment decisions over the last 100 years and, in some cases, over recent decades, based on the prospects that they will produce a commodity in which they will have a continued interest after harvest and after process into the marketing arrangements. This affords our grower-producers in Queensland the opportunity to decide whether they take engage in selling their sugar interest through a low-risk pool, a medium-risk pool, or indeed a high-risk pool. And they know that no matter what the outcome, they will, because they are shareholders along with their miller partners, in any of the benefits that are developed as a result of those sales. Additionally, Mr Acting Deputy President, in 2010, Wilmar and other millers had no difficulty at all in recognising this economic interest to the growers when QSL was unable to, due to inclement weather that prevented the harvest from being completed, were unable to meet about $110 million worth of international contracts. This was the cost of the penalties incurred by that company. Those penalties were properly, in recognition of growers' interest, sheeted back home to the growers and the millers, and the growers in my state collectively stumped up to about $66 million. Mr Acting Deputy President, all I want for my state and all of the grower-producers in my state want is a free market environment. And for that to occur, there has to be choice, there has to be transparency, and there has to be competitive tension. That is, of course, unless it is a single desk that is owned, where the interests of that single desk are owned by the grower-producers. And so the call has gone out to Wilmar to consider, and it has been coined as a phrase, the grower's choice. The grower's choice is not a request but a demand on Wilmar that they recognise the economic interest of these growers that has existed for over 100 years, that recognises the ability of the grower-producer to harvest the benefits and expose themselves to the risks that markets produce for the produce that they and their families grow, and in some instances have grown for 4 and 5 decades. So I've said before, and others have said it also, that collectively those of us who have any capacity to influence the decisions that will result from this departure of Wilmar from QSL will not relent until such time as those growers' interests are recognised. I understand that our Agricultural Minister in the state of Queensland has urged Wilmar to consider this. I understand that our Federal Agricultural Minister has made like statements and intends to elevate his rhetoric in relation to this matter in the near future, and I call on Wilmar simply to respect the 100-year convention of the 4,000 families who have nourished them to date in my home state. I thank you, sir, for the chance to speak.